everyone. Um, I'm not sure that there are any public people here to speak, but if there are and they have not done this before, when it's time to speak, come to the microphone, and then it comes back to the Plan Commission for discussion and a vote, which is a shorthand way. And please silence your phone. Mark, would you call the roll?
Mr. Kiefer?
Oh, wait a minute, we've got I'm sorry.
I'm hiding.
Hello.
Hi. Mr. Mitchell?
Here.
Mr. Perry?
Here.
Mr. Marshall?
Here.
Mr. Coulibaly?
Here.
Ms. Davy?
Here.
Councilmember Ford?
Here.
Mr. Groth?
Here.
Mr. Hins?
Present.
Chairperson Prob.
Here. Plan Commission, you have the June 1st minutes. What's your pleasure?
Motion to approve. Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, minutes are approved. First item is residential design standards variance to allow window area reductions and material not the same as the materials on the original building at 505 East New York Avenue. Were there any site inspections? And the chair will accept staff report as part of the record. Go ahead, staff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So item 1 is a residential design standards variance to allow window area reductions and different materials for the street side facade on the subject property. So it's a 2-part design standard request. So if I go to the next slide here.
Try taking the mouse. Yeah, that may not be turned on either.
Yeah, turn it on. For some reason
Might have to click with the mouse if it won't work.
that's not working. This was working just a second ago, Mark.
Technical difficulties.
Was working. Was not. No. Just have to right click and okay. Thanks. So you see the subject site there in blue. It's a corner lot at the corner of East New York and Broad Street. East New York just to the north of the subject site and Broad Street just to the west. The railroad tracks, or the railroad is just to the west of Broad Street there. A lot of the surrounding properties are single-family residential. They're varying scale and character. There is a multifamily just to the north, as you can see. And the subject site and a lot of the surrounding properties are zoned single-family residential 5, SR5. Next slide here. Just an aerial here showing the subject site. So this is, these are a couple images showing the existing property as it is. So you can see the area in focus here, this Broad Street side facade here. And then here's just another view looking at it. So they're really looking to reduce windows in this glass area here. This is a sunroom, or 4 seasons room, I should say, and they want to convert it to a master bedroom and bathroom suite. So obviously that's going to necessitate window reductions. So you can see that Plan Commission review and design standards approval are necessary for this. So you saw what they were going from. This is the proposed image showing the elevation that they are looking at here. So they would reduce the windows, from mainly glass for this entire facade segment here and go down to more punched openings here, here, and here. Everything else on the other facades would remain the same. They would do cedar shake siding as opposed to what they had the windows, I should say, the glazing that was there before. You can see it's a pretty substantial reduction. They still would be over the 15% code minimum for a street side facade. So if you recall, ordinance requires a minimum facade area to be 15% windows and doors for street sides. For front facades, it'd be 25%, but this is a street side facade. This just shows some of the street view looking down Broad to the south, subject site here, and then there's some residential properties there with the railroad over there. And then just looking to the north towards that multifamily property across East New York there. So staff looked at this. The applicant is going to be over the 15%. And we believe that if they, as long as they do new cedar shakes along that street side facade, but also wrap. So if we, I don't know if I can go back pretty easily here. The main thing that we want to make sure they do is they would make sure that they do cedar shake along this south facade piece here where this glass is now. We just don't want it to look like patchwork. So as long as they wrap that corner with cedar shake and they meet the 15% required by code, we would be okay with recommending approval with that condition. Inspections did weigh in on this, and they are going to have to submit required plans for inspections review. This is only for zoning and only for design standards review. They are still going to have to meet the relevant building codes. With that, we recommend approval with the conditions and finding as stated in your staff report.
Are there any technical questions? John?
Yeah, I was just curious, because I know on most of these projects, we want the additions or improvements to match or resemble what's there. How are we coming to the cedar shake being?
Yeah, so staff
Acceptable.
talked about that quite a bit, and we look at it the same as, for example, new construction homes. There's a design choice and design element made where maybe they include shake siding instead of lap siding as a gable end, or as they do it as an integral design portion of the building. In this case, we're viewing it the same, and that's why we're recommending it's the entire part of that area. That way, it's an intentional, it's a designed element and not patchwork where you're just doing part of a plane, part of the element.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to ask, because like I said, usually we try to be consistent, and I didn't want us to be like a one-off, and all of a sudden everybody comes in with something different.
Yep. And
There's a method to this.
correct. We're looking at it as a specific design choice similar to we do in other construction where it's intentionally done and it's an entire portion of the element of the building.
Okay, thank you.
Margie?
They only have to wrap the one corner, not both corners?
They would only wrap that one because if I go back,
Yeah, if you can go back for us.
see this.
Why not the one where the door is now?
So
Is
it
there
would-
still gonna be a door there?
We can verify. Our intent would be that it be that consistent. They could either do the I'm trying to think of how that would look with the lap siding
This
there.
one here, Margie?
Yeah,
Okay.
that side there.
I guess if there is still going to be a door there, I'm guessing there will not be because that would be directly into their master bedroom. And I think, is the applicant here for this one? Either of you gentlemen here for this one? We'll verify. My expectation is it's not going to be.
So
So then
then-
we would want consistent material.
That's a good point. Yep.
Which would be the cedar shake.
Correct.
Okay.
So we'll verify that for you. And I don't know why our
Okay.
clicker doesn't work.
Other technical questions? Okay, if not, is there anyone here from the public to speak on this item? Anybody here from the public to speak on this item? Seeing none, back to the commission. We need a motion.
Motion to adopt the findings and recommendations as stated in the staff report.
Second.
Discussion on the motion? I guess not. Let's call the roll.
Mr. Kiefer,
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell,
Aye.
Mr. Perry,
Aye.
Mr. Marshall,
Aye.
Mr. Coolabali,
Aye.
Ms. Davy,
I,
Councilmember Ford,
Aye.
Mr. Groth,
Aye.
Chairperson Prob. Oh, Mr. Hens, I'm sorry.
Aye.
Chairperson Prob. I was like,
Now, Rob, aye. Okay, we all finished?
Yes.
I think so. Item 2, residential design standards variance to allow a front yard setback not consistent with the prevailing building setbacks for a new home at 834 Miller Lane. Were there any site inspections? We had one. The chair will accept the staff report as part of the record. Go ahead, staff.
Thank you. So today we're looking at 834 Miller Lane. It is on the northeast side of Oshkosh, close to the lake. It's predominantly SR5 and all surrounding parcels. This particular road does have 3 parcels that are vacant lots currently and 3 lots that have already been developed. The far right property there that is, what is that, Shadow Lane, and Miller Lane is a garage lot that has got a Shadow Lane address. So the applicant is looking to, construct a new home on this address, and with the design that they proposed, in order to meet the required 25-foot rear setback, they would need to apply for this design standard variance in order to deviate from what the code says in regards to having a setback that is similar or equal to the two adjoining lots. So the property, I can't remember which one was further setback, but one of them was approximately 39-foot setback, and the other one had a 48-foot setback from the property line in the front. And so the applicant is asking to reduce that required setback to 32 feet. And in our conversations with them, we recommended that they apply for this variance so they could in fact meet that 25-foot rear setback. If they went the other way, it would have had to go, if they wanted to deviate from that 25-foot rear setback, it would have been a Board of Appeals variance. So this was the better process for them. Staff is recommending approval of this for a number of reasons. And I should mention too that after the staff report was written, can you help me out with the address there, Mark? The
880.
880 actually already has an approved permit for a new home from the same builder. And that setback for that property is 25 feet by right. And that is, we just want to mention this here because it wasn't in the staff report because it got discovered after the fact. Because the garage lot is a garage lot and the property to the west, I think that might be 870, is a vacant lot. The setback for that home is only 25, is the minimum 25 feet. So with that home already being permitted to be built, it does kind of help the argument for this variance even more because the average for that block has already been reduced with that new home setback being permitted by right. Essentially recalculating the average, fully once that home is completed. I guess, and lastly, the other thing to mention is that the south side of Miller Lane doesn't have as drastic of setbacks as the north side, and so having a reduced setback on the north doesn't really change the effect of the neighborhood at all. It's, the character will be consistent. So with that, again, staff is recommending approval of the variance from the city's design standard variance to allow a 32-foot yard setback, 32 front yard setback for the new home at 834 Miller Lane.
Okay, technical questions? Anybody? Anybody? I guess not. Anybody here from the public wanting to speak on this item? Nope. No public here. Then we'll close the public comment period. And commission, we need a motion.
Make a motion to adopt the findings and recommendations as stated in the staff report. Second.
Is there discussion? Okay. Well, this is call it town standards. Because that was in the town of Oshkosh, and it's obviously in the city now, right?
I believe so. I'm not 100% sure.
At one
Otherwise, we
point-
wouldn't be voting on it.
Yeah, at one point in time, it would have been in the town. It's been in the city for quite a while.
Okay. So I think we're doing as well as we can with this.
It's a situation where there's some inconsistency throughout the block between vacant lots, the south side, trying to balance those factors together. That section of the code, when the way it's written, is really intended for that one infill lot in a already established neighborhood. Unfortunately, it applies to situations like this where that wasn't necessarily the original intent of that provision. This block doesn't have kind of that prevailing line just with vacant lots and the difference between the north and the south.
Okay. No further discussion? Then we'll call the roll.
Mr. Kiefer,
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell,
Aye.
Mr. Perry,
Aye.
Mr. Marshall,
Aye.
Mr. Coulibaly,
Aye.
Davy,
Aye.
Councilmember Ford,
Aye.
Mr. Groth,
Aye.
Aye.
Chairperson Proud.
Aye. Item 3, commercial design standards variance for a building addition with class 4 materials at 2326 South Washburn Street. Any site inspections? The chair will accept the staff report as part of the record. Go ahead.
Thank you. The subject site is located on Washburn Street. It also has rear frontage on Highway 41 right of way. Surrounding uses are a quick trip to the south, and then similar commercial uses to the north, and industrial use to the west. Here's an aerial photo of the subject site as it currently exists. The applicant is proposing a rear addition to the building. And as the addition is greater than 50% of the existing floor area, it needs to meet current material design standards for commercial uses. They're proposing a class 4 material, which is pre-finished metal wall panels for the exterior, and that will match the existing exterior of the building. But with it being, again, more than 50% of the existing floor area, it needs that access, or it needs the design standard variance to have a class 4 material on the exterior. Here are the building elevations. Again, its exterior is pre-finished metal wall panels, and on the highway-facing side, it also has overhead doors for access from the parking lot addition. Here's an image on the left of the front of the building, and then on the right, kind of a view from Highway 41 right away. You can see that building and some of the neighboring buildings all kind of have the same metal exteriors. Again, here's 3 of the buildings to the north, as seen from Washburn Street. They all kind of have a similar metal wall panel for their exteriors. And here's a view of those buildings from 41 right of way. So staff is recommending approval as they will be matching the existing materials of the building, and also it's consistent with the neighboring buildings, which also have a very similar exterior materials that they're using. So staff is recommending approval as it's compatible with the surrounding area. So staff is recommending approval of the design standards variance with the condition that the exterior materials match color and materials type to the existing building.
Technical questions? Justin?
We've talked a couple times about different developments where the front of the building is street frontage and there's landscaping requirements. The back of this building would be along the highway, and I get that the standards may be different, but I'm wondering if the philosophy that would require one doesn't apply to the other.
So they will be required landscaping on this building. We didn't bring that plan forward because it's base code, they have to meet it.
Okay.
We really, the nuance of this one is that they're trying to match materials to their building in the area, which, as you guys know, typically we don't support, but in this case, it's such a prevalent part of that industrial, commercial type area that it really does make sense. But yeah, they'll have to meet all the other code provisions for landscaping, lighting, parking, all of those.
Any other technical questions? Is anybody here from the public to speak on this item? Anybody here to speak on this item? Okay, I seeing none. Back to the commission. We need a motion. Oh, no, you're just in time, Ed. We need a motion on this.
Motion to adopt the findings and recommendations as stated in the staff report.
Second.
Discussion on the motion? Let's call the roll.
Mr. Kiefer,
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell,
Aye.
Mr. Perry,
Aye.
Mr. Marshall,
Aye.
Mr. Coulibaly,
Aye.
I,
Councilmember Ford,
Aye.
Mr. Groth,
Aye.
Mr. Hens,
Aye.
Chairperson Proud.
Aye. Okay, item 4, general development plan, a specific implementation plan for a personal storage facility at 1300 South Keller. Any site inspections? The chair will accept the staff report as part of the record. Staff, go ahead with the summary.
Thank you. So this is the former Shopco building site on South Kohler Street. Surrounding uses are predominantly commercial uses along Kohler Street, and then there are residential uses to the east. Here's a view of the subject site. So the applicant is proposing a personal storage facility for the existing vacant building. And that land use is not permitted within the SMU zoning district. The applicant is requesting a BSM to allow a personal storage facility as a land use. They're also proposing to divide the lot into 2 lots. Lot 1 will be reserved for future commercial use and would be addressed under a separate request. And Lot 2 is the personal storage facility request. They're not proposing any changes to the site other than landscaping for the site to kind of offset that BSM for the personal storage facility use. So they are proposing to be meeting that paved area requirement as well as building foundation landscaping. So again, that will kind of offset the BSM for the personal storage facility. Staff is recommending a condition that lot 1 be developed within 3 years or else returned to a green space. And developing that lot for commercial use would kind of serve to buffer the storage use from the Kohler Street right-of-way. Here's the lighting plan, which does meet all lighting requirements as far as foot candles. They will need to reduce the light pole height of the 3 new light poles for the existing parking area in front of the building to 20 feet, and they can also have a 3-foot base to 23 feet overall. They are also requesting a BSM to maintain the existing pylon sign on lot 1. It's considered an off-premise advertising sign as the personal storage facility uses on lot 2. So they'd just be doing like a face replacement likely to advertise for the storage facility. They'd also need a BSM as the height is slightly over the maximum for the SMU district. So staff is supportive of that as the personal storage facility site, lot 2, really doesn't have any frontage along South Kohler Street. Here are the building facades. So they're predominantly maintaining the existing materials, but just kind of enhancing them by painting them. And also adding an EFIS storefront as well. So overall, they are improving the appearance of the building. Here are the color renderings. So staff is recommending approval of the general development plan and specific implementation plan for the personal storage facility as listed in your staff report.
So a couple of just extra comments. When we try to talk about consistency of projects, some of these base standard modifications and conditions are similar to how we've treated the U-Haul project in the past, or the Potbellies, kind of highlighting 2 of them. The turf grass after 3 years if not developed, that's consistent with how we did the U-Haul development. The base standard modifications allowed to keep the sign off premise. For those that were on the Plan Commission, when we did the Potbellies development, it was the same thing. When we carved that outlot off the front, we gave them the base standard to keep the existing pylon sign for the development behind it. So we are trying to be consistent with how we've done development.
Okay. Technical questions? John?
Yeah, I just have one question, and it deals with the lot 1 green space, because I don't think the green space that we have on the outlot on the U-Haul property is exactly what we envisioned.
So they still have to return the rest of that to grass. We're actually going through that discussion with them right
Okay,
now.
so theirs isn't actually a completed green space like it's supposed to be.
Correct. They had the 3 years to do it. I think they're actually coming
Close.
to a workshop next
Yeah.
meeting to discuss development of
Okay.
that lot.
Okay, thanks. That.
Yeah, no,
I
that
was like,
does
if it's
not
gonna
yet
look
meet-
like that, then there's issues.
Correct. That does not yet meet that provision, and we've been having discussion with U-Haul on that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Justin, I think you had
Thank you. We had a workshop on this, I believe, and I thought they had talked about changing or addressing some of the kind of sprawling, uninterrupted asphalt pavement area. Is anything happening on that?
The larger reduction we're going to see in that is when lot 1 develops. You're going to see significant reduction on lot 1. For lot 2,
I mean, I'm just looking because if it's a storage facility, do they do an assessment of how many people are going to be parked there at any particular time, and is there a need for 80 slots?
We can definitely ask that and see if they have an opportunity to remove a little more than we have.
That would be awesome.
I think they're alternatives here.
extremely unattractive and you know, not helpful in terms of livability or the environment in any fashion, and to address some of that kind of heat island effect would be great.
I think definitely a worthwhile question.
other technical questions? If not, we'll open it up to the public and request a statement from the applicant. Come on up.
I don't know how this works anymore.
I don't either, I'm not sitting in the right
I haven't
place.
been
so-
here in a really
Well, you still showed up late.
I know. I thought it was right on time.
Well, yeah.
Personally, but, Ed Bowen with the Morgan Partners, 601 Oregon Street, Oshkosh. On behalf of the applicant here, we're not the developer of the Lot 2 property. We are the proposed acquiring party of Lot 1 and are here assisting the actual developer for Lot 2 in the approvals process. The gist of our interest, obviously, is in acquiring Lot 1. That is our goal. That is what we intend on doing here. But the key to sort of unlocking that is the orderly development of Lot 2 as the storage operator has intended to do. In terms of just some specific questions, I guess, regarding the parking, yeah, we intend on completely reshaping the parking on Lot 1. Sorry, just had to make sure I was using the right number. On the outlot, once we have our development plan in order, and my gut tells me that we're probably going to be bringing in a plan probably here within the next, I'd say next 90 to 120 days, something like that. That will give you an idea of what we're looking at there. We've got a number of site plans that we've done for that parcel, but we have a user that we've gone down the road with here, so we're hopeful that we're going to have a specific development plan for that soon. That plan will remove all of those existing parking stalls and replace them with parking stalls specifically to serve that outlot use and bring them into a more modernized, more code compliant configuration than what you see right now. As it relates to the existing stalls on Lot 2, so the stalls sort of to the southwest, if we want to call them that, of the main former Shopko building, those are unfortunately mostly covered by easement agreements with both the IHOP and Qdoba parcels that have already been carved out. So those are subject to a real specific site plan that is going to take a pretty heavy lift to alter those. So unfortunately, while those stalls may not necessarily be 100% necessary for the storage use on Lot 2, they are used by and subject to restrictions to serve both the Qdoba and IHOP parcels, which those are integral parts of their parking because they do use those for a lot of their overflow off-site. So while looking at it in this sort of vacuum right here, it would be nice to say, well, they're a storage use, they don't really need that much, which is 100% correct. The sort of shared use with the other parcels require those stalls to remain there. But in terms of Lot 1, yeah, we intend on reconfiguring and bringing that up to a much more modern standard once we bring our development plan here through soon. I don't think there were any other specific technical questions that I can help address, but I'm here to answer anything else that anyone else may have.
I've got one.
Yeah.
Looking there today, I saw the enclosure, the former landscape enclosure, I think, that Shopko had.
Oh, the garden center.
The garden center,
Yeah.
the low wall.
Mhm.
And I thought that doesn't look compatible with what the storage people might want to do.
Right.
So I admit I didn't read the fine print well enough in the specific implementation plan. That'll be taken.
I believe that the fencing, I think there's fencing there. I think the fencing gets removed.
Well, it's masonry, and I call it a masonry wall. I mean, it's.
Yeah, I think some of that gets removed. Some of that, if I remember correctly, is that over that easement? So we had looked at originally taking that back to grass, but because it's over that pipeline easement, there's some of the coordination for the excavation and stuff that becomes really, really complicated. So I think the thought was to leave it as is, but I don't think that there's any utility for that for this user. So if the condition, you know, was that they needed to somehow address that area, I don't know that, I don't think they have plans to do outdoor storage or anything like that
Yeah.
in that area or anything. So if there was something that, that the Plan Commission wanted to see done with that area, my guess is that they'd be receptive to it.
Okay. I don't exactly know what that is, except it
Yeah.
just looks, right now it looks odd.
I know
and
what
it might be
you're
a way to,
There may be a
collect
way to-
weeds and
Yeah, there may be a way to,
become unsightly.
there may be a way to spruce that up a little bit that I think they'd probably be open to.
Okay. Other questions for the applicant? Justin?
Thanks. Two questions, I guess. What percentage of those stalls are shared use, and are those new? When we did the workshop, I left with the warm feeling of sentiment that I think you had shared about absolutely those lots are extremely unattractive to the city, and we're gonna you know, try and make them look better with this development. So
Well, I think my statement to that regard was regarding our lot. And by our lot, I mean Lot 1. We have control over, you know, what we're doing in terms of a redevelopment of that site
Sure.
and new development on that one. Even the owner of Lot 2 here doesn't have a tremendous amount of control over, so it's the 3 trees that are south of that middle drive aisle with the angled parking. So the 3 full trees that run south along that, those are subject to easements with IHOP and Qdoba. So those are really, even if we wanted to do something about those, I don't know that either the owner of Lot 1 or the owner of Lot 2 necessarily has the ability to do anything with those without the consent of IHOP or Qdoba, who, you know, just from a transactional standpoint, use those. Those are subject to a shared use. They're subject to an easement that allows for their shared use by those users. So I think that they would not be particularly motivated to remove or alter those stalls.
saying the south 3 rows.
Yeah. I don't know if there's I don't know. Mark, do you want to maybe like?
There's a picture on our. Otherwise, there should be a mouse up there that you can move.
Oh, you mean this one right here?
Yeah, that one.
The one that's been sitting by my hand the entire time? Yeah, so all of these stalls right here are, so this is the IHOP parcel right here. IHOP on its actual parcel is somewhat underparked, as is Qdoba. They have like a dozen stalls on their parcel or something like that. They have a right to use these, and I believe these, as part of an easement agreement. IHOP has the right to, I think, use all of these, if I recall correctly. These stalls, which form sort of the visible bulk of all of the unsightly stalls on the Shopko parcel, the good news is these are relatively hidden. These stalls, as it currently exists, will all be removed and reconfigured as part of our redevelopment within the next few months. Not the actual redevelopment within the next couple of months, but the plans that we're going to be bringing in within the next couple of months.
Thank you.
That mouse is helpful. Thank you.
Tom, you had a question?
Mr. Bone, so you are not representing the owner of parcel 2?
We're here just providing sort of an advisory. We're not the owner. I just want to make sure I'm stating that we're not the owner. But yes, we're here sort of on their behalf for the meeting purpose.
So in a sense where you're asking us to put the cart before the horse because we don't know specifically what owner of parcel 2 has planned, because, and if I recall right, they could sublease this out to any number of 12, 24 different storage corporations who could do whatever they want essentially with the parcel as long as it involves storage.
That's a very, very loaded statement that you're asking me to confirm for you, and
You can't.
I wouldn't characterize it as putting the cart before the horse, because what you're doing is you're approving a personal storage use on site, whether that happens to be operated by Extra Space Storage or True Storage or public storage or U-Haul or whoever it is, that use doesn't necessarily change based on the operator. You're approving the use and you're approving the base standard modifications that go along with it. So I wouldn't say that you're putting the cart before the horse. I wouldn't say that they could change the use based on what you're approving either.
Okay, I have a follow-up question for the staff then. Personal storage, what does that mean? What can be stored there?
So personal storage is the individual storage locker type development. So the inside of the building would be converted to those individual storage spaces.
And who can rent out those individual storage spaces?
We do not regulate who rents storage. We don't regulate who rents anything. We can only regulate the land use of personal storage per its definition.
So as an example, if the building could not be rented to its fullest capacity and a tenant approached that wanted to store something toxic or something like that, they could potentially do that because that is an agreement between the owner or business owner and the tenant, who could be a family or an LLC.
So I guess a couple pieces to answer there. Obviously, there are DNR federal guidelines on storage of toxic material
That we're aware of.
that would have to be met, that we're aware of.
Right.
And that's no different than an individual storing toxic waste in their garage. So they have to meet federal regulations from that perspective. Whether an LLC rents it, a business rents it, an individual rents it, we do not regulate. It's not any different than any other personal storage where maybe an individual rents it and they store their excess materials there because they live in an apartment, or a contractor rents it and they store their equipment there between jobs. Storage is storage from a land use perspective. We can't regulate occupancy or tenancy. What we can regulate is that if this plan is approved, they're limited to what's shown in this plan, which is interior to the building. They could not add anything exterior or change anything outside of the building. Anything interior would have to be building code compliant and would have to meet that definition of personal storage facility. They couldn't then modify it, for example, into a warehouse and be a great big open space for storage. That would be warehousing, not personal storage.
Thank you.
Quick question
John.
for you. Now, this might be asking a question, putting the cart before the horse. But when you develop Lot 1, I'm guessing it's your intent to have the main building be closest to the frontage road, which would basically take the parking area for that and for the next, and for this, the existing lot, pretty much encircle it with buildings, so it's not really.
Yeah, if you look at up here,
easement.
the red,
Yeah.
it's not easy to go on an angle with this mouse. The red thing that I'm generally sort of on top of here is an underground pipeline. It's actually an extension of the A&R pipeline that also crosses under 41 and runs up past Dick's and PetSmart. So the second time that we've gotten to deal with this particular pipeline in the last couple of years. There are things that you can build over the pipeline. There's work that you can do over the pipeline, but you can't put footings and foundations in. You can't put a structure on top of it. You can grade it for asphalt and concrete. You can do certain utility crossings at certain depths over that pipeline. You are restricted in how you work within that area in terms of when A&R gets notice and who is on site when that work is getting done. Long story short is that we are not quite so foolhardy to think that we are better than an international pipeline corporation in terms of our legal budget. So we're going to keep our building out of that pipeline area, which means really, as to the development of this site, the only logical place to develop anything is close to the road. And by doing so, you sort of are, you're left with the option of creating a buffer between that interior parking area, the storage use. Everything on this parcel that gets developed is going to be pushed closer to the road, whether we wanted to put it back towards the building or not, just because of the location of that pipeline. I think obviously, as you've seen on Kohler in the last few years, generally speaking, the appetite from developers and space occupants is to be as close to the road as they possibly can. So from a commercially viable standpoint, we want to make sure that we're pushing everything to the road as well. So we're naturally sort of going to be in a position where we're buffering that area by placing any development that we do as close to the road as we possibly can.
Thanks.
Other questions for Ed, the applicant?
How
Mamadou.
deep is the pipeline?
Oh, I am not qualified to answer that one. I'm sorry. It's deep enough to be deep enough that you can run utilities over it. Like you can run some water lines and you can run some things over it. But it's not deep enough that you don't have to worry about it. I guess let's just say that. You have to do a lot of. If I remember from the Dixon PetSmart site, there's a lot of hand digging that gets done when you work within that pipeline area. They'll do a lot of excavating on the top level, but then the once you expose it, you have to have a representative on site, and it's a lot of hand digging that happens from there. So it's a tightrope to walk, and it's not a lot of fun, and it's expensive, but it's worth it in this instance.
Any other questions of Ed? I guess not. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Anybody else here to speak on this item? Anybody else official here otherwise? Okay, I guess not. Then we'll close public comment, and we need a motion.
Move to adopt the finding and recommendation as stated in the staff report.
Second.
Discussion. Justin?
A question for the city. If Lot 1 were to be developed as new construction today based on what they're proposing, and for that same usage, what would be required for the parking?
Lot 2, right? Not
Sorry,
lot
Lot 2, yes.
Okay. Let me grab the book and we'll get you an answer.
Well, as you're looking, does the city have information on those shared uses of those stalls?
We are not party to those agreements, so we would not have the documents unless they were provided by the applicant.
And Mr. Bowen mentioned, he thinks a certain amount. Have they provided a percentage or a specific number of those that are?
We could condition it on them supplying those documents to us. This is relatively common issue with these outlot developments. When large scale users developed them, they had all sorts of these shared parking agreements, and as they get further developed down the line, it gets into a lot of problems.
I'm sorry to belabor something that might end up being like one tree, but I genuinely feel that these parking lots that they serve as one of the most ugly features of our city, and relatively high visibility areas, and they're as ugly if they're concealed by buildings or not, right? This sprawling, failing concrete surface and or asphalt, even worse. So if there's a way to seize this opportunity, we might not have this opportunity again for 50 years. And so if we're gonna do any sorts of improvement to it, now would be the time.
To answer your first question, personal storage facilities, 1 to 1.25 spaces per employee on the largest shift. They run a very low parking calc.
Right. So even if you were talking 10 employees, which is probably not what's happening.
You're looking at 10 to 12 and a half stalls.
Yeah. I mean,
Good math.
I don't know the other sentiment, and I don't want to do a motion if no one else, go through that whole effort to do it. But it seems to be that if there was a way to somehow have it be, if we're able to have some of those slots, even one per row or something, 2 slots per row, shift over to.
Happy to look at the documents. Traditionally, when we've seen these, they've called the entire parking area out. I don't recall seeing any that designated number of stalls. Usually when they were drafted to cover the entire parking area. Now, I think, kind of to your point, maybe Qdoba only needs realistically 25 spaces.
Right.
We're just going to throw rough numbers out there. And they're probably well over that. But there are legal easements and agreements that extend beyond that number that we would probably prefer to see. One thing we've tried to do is put in maximum number of parking stalls in our code to try to reduce asphalt, hardscape, heat island, that stuff you're talking about. We know in redevelopment it's more of a challenge because some of these legal agreements are out there that exist that can hinder any development. One space that I see on this that maybe there's a potential is what about those spaces on the south property line? If they are maybe not covered by that agreement. Maybe they are, maybe they're not, I don't know. But that's one that maybe it doesn't have maybe quite the same impact as the area to the west, but maybe that's potential.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what other people have to say.
Okay, any other plan commission? Tom?
Obviously, this is something that I'm not gonna support, but for many different reasons. One is last meeting, we saw a map that had, several storage units already mapped out, and upon my review, there were 7 more that weren't even on there, down Jackson Street. And then there are storage units that may be in the township, but are so close to us that one would reasonably infer that they were within our city's boundaries, and so we are flush with storage units that are visible everywhere. We've also set a precedent. Several years ago, we were approached about doing the exact same thing for the former J.C. Penney building that is now Extreme Customs. Because it was a main corridor into the city, we soundly rejected that. This, in my opinion, is no different. And the last reason is that we still have a lot of questions, as noted by Mr. Mitchell's questions about can we do some more things here? Can we do some green space there? Can we, lessen the impact on this area or that area? That just simply can't be answered because we don't have a representative of the full parcel here tonight. I fully support the development that Mr. Bowen is approaching us with, but it's only 1/3 of the entire package that we are asked to be voting on tonight, so I will not be able to support this. I think that at the minimum, it should be pushed off until we can get a representative to answer all these questions, but, or it should just be completely denied.
Okay. Other comments from the plan commission? I have one. I understand what Justin's trying to do, but I think suspect strongly it's a slippery slope to try to take away rights, call it, from people that have businesses that have been legally using that parking, and regardless of what the exact easement agreement is, I suspect it would be a nasty business. And personally, those islands have trees on them, don't they?
Part of the plan is to install any missing landscaping and landscape those islands.
And if they don't have trees on them, then it's to landscape them.
Yeah, it looks
Okay.
like approximately 8, 9 new trees and then shrubs as well.
Okay, because I've always liked the Shopko Islands landscaping. I think they were early versions of the kind of thing that we like. So I wouldn't want to see those go. Anyway, any other discussion? Mike?
Is the city staff know, I guess maybe it's too early, but that Lot 1 development, I mean, presumably that's well, it looks like was the dominant parking area for Costco, and I assume the new use will have a lot less of a need for that many spots.
Yeah, my expectation would be based on our current code requirements is that site is going to be significantly reduced. With the pipeline and the size of available space for a building at our, say it was a retail restaurant type land use, you're looking at about 3.5 per 1,000, rough numbers. So if it was even say they got a large building on there, 8,000 square feet, 25, 30 spaces.
So fair to say if this is approved, that 3 years down the line, we're gonna have fewer parking spots here than we do now?
I would expect you see significantly less parking than you do today.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna go back and I believe our parking lot goes 1 to 300. So my math on that might have been wrong. Let me correct it.
Okay, John.
And I just want to piggyback on that. I'm guessing because of the location of the entrance for this building that Lot 1 and Lot 2 will have a cross agreement for parking. I would imagine. I don't know. I'm seeing Ed nodding, so just because of the sheer location of where the parking would be, it would be right across from whatever doors would be the entrance. So, but I actually intend to support this, and one of the main reasons is we have a big empty building that's sitting around. Someone's going to go in there and they're going to put storage units in there. And should that business end up 10, 15 years down the road, being storage units that we don't need, that's one of the easiest things to redevelop, and I would imagine any developer would tell you that. They can just rip everything right out, boom, put another retail lot in there, or take a whole building down and start over. But until then, we have something that's actually active in there, and it's not right on the road. And that's, to me, that's the big thing with this. It's actually offset, and there's going to be other things in front of it and separating it from the road. So for that reason, I'll be supporting this today.
So to correct my math, 1 to 300, for example, 8,000 square foot building would be about 27 spaces.
Is that your final answer?
Okay,
I'm locking it in.
Okay.
Justin?
Just a question of a different topic. Do we have a flow of traffic, a pattern flow at all in this, or no?
So there's a primary drive kind of corridor that you can see on the south side of the site that's been traditionally used out there to service into all of those developments. Do we have traffic counts? I could pull up the DOT counts for Keller Street. We typically don't do them internally unless we do a TIA.
I know that was, I'm trying to think of why do we host a workshop if the things that are discussed in the workshop don't make it to the final version? One of the other items was we indicated a concern for traffic flow, and I know I had referenced the coffee shop out there where, I was just out there a couple of weeks ago, and the drive-through was backed up onto the frontage road. And I didn't know if this is the point in which this is something that we look at, or if it'll be coming back at a later date when they're ready to actually move forward with Lot 1.
So I think the key with traffic is that Lot 1, what is that user? I think that's where we really need to evaluate that. The storage use is not a high turnover traffic volume generator. Lot 1, Dunkin' Donuts versus
Right, and that'll be coming back.
Culver's, those are some high traffic users versus a sit-down restaurant that has a lower traffic. So when Lot 1 comes back, we will want to look at what is the traffic impact of this. It may or may not need a TIA. It'll depend upon what that land use is. We're also going to want to look at how is it accessed. Right now, from a planning perspective, I look at it, and there's a lot of concern with how you come in and you immediately have to turn left into those drive spaces.
Right.
If we kind of close that corridor off and they enter more from the side or rear, it can help with some of those traffic issues. So looking at how that site layout will be important in the future.
Okay. Margie?
I actually tend to, excuse me, I'm so choked up about this. It's so wonderful. I do tend to agree with John on this. I think that from a sustainability point of view, it's very nice that a building is being reused this way rather than being torn down, and that it will be able to collect taxes for the city and everything. I think it's, maybe I wouldn't have chosen to put more storage anywhere, and I don't disagree with you on that, Tom. But we're not going to see it. It's not going to look like a storage. It's not ugly. It's no uglier than Shopko was. So I see it as an acceptable reuse and a good reuse of the building. So I will support it.
Okay. Mark, I wish I had done a better job of carefully reading the specific implementation plan, but I still have this nagging question about the garden center
So
appendage on it, which
can you go to one?
in no way looks like something that they're going to be.
I just want to make sure I understand. You're talking.
Right, that's what I'm talking there.
Okay.
And so, is there something, if this is a specific implementation plan, is there something about the exterior to that south side there in this plan?
Can you go to the elevations for me? I'm trying to recall. So it doesn't, from what I can see, it doesn't look like they're showing any use of that area.
So they would be able to tear it down and
So potentially it could be removed.
remove it and,
Go back to the A&R parkland. I just want to see how these. So go back one more. So it does look like right now they're showing basically removal of everything in there and it's staying hardscape. But that could potentially be an area for returning to green space. We could have that discussion with them.
Okay. Yeah, well, good. I think it should
Yeah,
be
based on
removed.
kind of the images are shown here, it looks like it's not programmed space, let's call it. So that could potentially be a condition, if this board would choose, to to require that to be returned to green space.
Well, we don't know where the overhead doors are going to be. Whether there's going to be anybody literally driving into the building
Back,
for storage
keep
purposes.
going to the elevations one more time for me, please. So I do not see any overhead doors shown on their south elevation.
Well, there has to be
Uh,
access somewhere to the interior.
They've got their main doors on the front. I think that is something we do want to verify. But because right now they're showing no doors, period, on that south side of the building. That is what their plan indicates.
So is the blue a main door and the black is another main door? Maybe that's the entrance point, the black. What's under the black?
Yeah, you're talking on the west elevation where they show the two entrances into the building?
Yeah.
Yeah. So right now they're indicating those both as customer entrances to the building.
Right, okay, which could be a drive-in. One
I
of
don't,
those at
right
least
now
would be a
neither
drive-in.
are shown as, both now are shown as pedestrian level doors.
Pedestrian doors, okay. Somehow I think we're uncovering detail that we should know
Yeah,
in a specific implementation plan.
Their plans indicate no overhead doors on the site. I don't know if, I see Mr. Bowen shaking his head. Do we want to bring the applicant back up to?
I think we should bring the applicant back up.
No. Well, we have someone saying no, so you would need to vote on it to reopen the floor for Mr. Bowen.
Oh, do we have to have a vote?
If there is not consent, then you would
Is there
need,
consent that we can hear from the applicant?
No.
No?
so you
Well,
would,
then can
someone
we-
would need to make a motion in a second and vote to reopen the floor.
Make a motion to reopen the floor so the applicant can speak.
Discussion on that? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Kiefer?
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell?
Aye.
Mr. Perry?
No.
Mr. Marshall?
Aye.
Mr. Colapali? Ms. Davy?
Aye.
Councilmember Ford?
Aye.
Mr. Grove?
Aye.
Mr. Hens?
Aye.
Chairperson Propp?
Aye. Okay, come back, please, Ed.
Thank you. To Kathy's question regarding the west-facing doors, those would not be overhead vehicular-type entrance points by any means. I think from my understanding, the operator would be using those doors as pedestrian sort of personal entrances only. I do not believe currently that they have any sort of drive-in functionality planned. If that's something that the Plan Commission wants to sort of make a condition on, staff review and approval of how that would happen, I think that's a fair condition, because I don't necessarily have the answer for you today.
Okay.
Saying, hey, they're going to drive in this side door right now. Because as it sits, the overhead door, I believe, on the south face of the building is a dock height door.
Oh.
I don't believe that there's an at-grade entrance point on the building currently. So that would be something that would likely be added down the road if it needed to be added. But certainly from a use standpoint, if that was something that the Plan Commission wasn't comfortable giving them carte blanche doing, conditioning that on staff review and approval in terms of the approach and the traffic and all that sort of stuff would be, I don't feel that would be an unreasonable condition.
Okay.
And if they wanted to modify anything in the future, and if this was approved and they wanted to modify it in the future, they would have to come back to you.
Right.
Yeah, because it's a planned development.
Correct.
And as it relates to that garden area, you're right. It's not on that plan. And I think if you wanted to be specific about the specific implementation plan, as you noted, conditioning the approval on removal of the garden area, I think is a reasonable condition to put on it as well.
Okay. Any other questions for
I have a question.
Tom?
So, Mr. Bowen, if this comes back for a specific implementation plan by the owner of the lot that you do not, the business that you do not represent, and we say absolutely not because they can't meet any of the questions, answer the questions, do any of the things that we want to do, what happens to your plan if they can't get an SIP?
We're here for an SIP.
What our specific implementation
on
plan?
this parcel, on lot 2. Are you
Right.
referring to lot 2 or lot 1?
I'm referring to the lot that you are not representing.
The storage lot.
Yes, the
Okay.
storage lot. What if we can't agree with them on the things that they may or may not want? Because all we've heard from you is saying, yeah, maybe, maybe not, maybe not, because you can't represent them, you can't
Well, I
legally
think
represent them.
I've said that on 1 or 2.
Right, and so
One
what
or
if
two
we
things.
say, I'm sorry, I'm gonna finish asking my question. What if we say that we can't agree with these guys on their specific thing? What happens to your plans
My plans, meaning my plans for,
or your
Lot
lot? The
one.
lot that you're hoping to get, yes.
if lot 2's development does not occur, lot 1's development does not occur. Lot 1's development is hinged upon lot 2 being developed. The redevelopment of the building unlocks the ability to redevelop the out parcel.
So this could all not work out down the road based on the questions that we have for the storage unit owner? Potentially,
Potentially.
okay.
I mean, potentially a lot of things can happen. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
unclear on, I guess, where you're going with it.
Well, I think he's answered your question.
Yes, he is.
Mike?
Yeah, question for city staff. First off, the only certainty is the Bucks win tonight, but more importantly,
Cover 4.
I don't touch the gambling. But just to clarify, what we're voting on is the SIP that's in front of us. So if they were going to add doors or do anything, they had to come back. This is the plan they gave
Correct.
us.
If they apply for their building permits and it does not match this,
Correct.
they're coming back.
Ah, okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Then, if they apply for the building permit and it shows doors, or it doesn't show whether we or not we add this condition about removing the garden area, then they've got to come back.
They would have 2 options. Match this plan, do whatever you've conditioned, whether it be green space or no door, or the no doors has shown, or they would have to try to come back to you and amend that SIP approval.
Ah, okay, I think that helps. Justin?
Can you go, are you able to go to the image where you can see the back corner, kind of where the garden area was, where you can see the creek as well?
Well, I don't know how to do that.
The aerial?
Yeah, I think so.
I can't.
Oh, hey.
Somebody who knows what he can.
He's good. That
knows
that
what
works.
he's doing,
Do we,
let him know.
do we know, there's the garden center thing, but all of that other area as well, do we know what the purpose of that is?
So this is all the loading, this was all the Shopko loading and unloading facility. Their trucks, as I recall, I believe actually their trucks came in all the way behind Walgreens. This cross-access point runs all the way to 9th Avenue and serves all of these retail users here. Their trucks would come in like this, head in like that, and then I believe back in, and you had a loading and unloading facility with a loading door.
Sure, do we know,
There.
do we know what the new plans are for that area?
I do not know specifically if they plan on utilizing any of that, just because it's sort of could they use that as their, if you have a vehicle that can come to a dock height door or something like that, could you load and unload there potentially? I suppose they could use that. I don't know if they're going to use that or not. Either way, it retains sort of that existing use of dock height delivery type material.
Okay, John, and then Phil. Phil?
Thank you.
We haven't heard from you.
So can we have the storage people come back and just answer some of these questions? I would think that just visually, you know, seeing the original doors to the old Shopco and everything, we'd have a few more questions. How are people going to access the site? You know, are they going to be able to have a garage maybe they can partially pull into to unload some of their things? I mean, you know, if this was just all exterior access, like some of these, you know, other facilities that we have, that, you know, would be fine. But we're looking at basically another U-Haul area where they need to get into a building. And I guess I'm not comfortable just looking at the elevation visuals and saying that's how it should be. I think we need more of an explanation of how they're going to access and use it.
John?
Kind of my point too, is like, I think we would want to see them develop that self-elevation where the loading dock is now for their primary loading and unloading of the building, not in the front of the building through
Right.
those, you know, entrance doors. I think we'd want to have somebody pull their truck or their U-Haul, whatever they're storing, and pull up there and unload. So you know, and along with that, the garden area that you brought up, Kathy, you know, that we should look to see, you know, what can be done there. Can that be enhanced? So I think there's a lot of questions that are coming up here that we don't have answers to, and maybe if we can get any of the answers of the parking. I mean, we see some pictures in our staff report where there's car, truck. I don't know how old these pictures are, but there's quite a bit of parking, quite a bit of cars in that picture. And I don't know if they're from IHOP or if this was the pictures back from the days when Shopco was still operating. But there seems like there's a lot of use in those pictures, so not that one, but one like that, but there's
Yeah,
cars.
that's the
But I like that one
2020
because it
aerial.
shows
I believe the one in your plan is the 2018
Go back
aerial.
one, yeah, that. That where you mean?
Yeah, that's not one that,
Yeah,
but,
the one in your staff report would be 2018
okay.
aerial. So Shopko probably would have still been operating, or they closed right around there.
But anyway, so it'd
Okay.
be nice to get those questions
ask-
answered, I think.
Justin, and then I'm gonna ask somebody for a motion.
One question for Mr. Bowen yet, is he still up? What is the impact if this gets tabled for 2 more weeks? I think you could probably add it in 2 weeks.
Yeah, we could, if it was,
What's
if
the
this body would choose to table it for
Right.
2 weeks, it automatically goes on that agenda.
Okay, what's the harm to you for that?
Shuffle around my kids' drop-off schedule in the afternoon again, 2 weeks from now. I mean, I don't know that there's any tangible
Can we have
harm.
answers in a couple
Certainly,
weeks?
yeah, certainly. I think
present,
we could probably address any concerns that you have within that 2 weeks, no problem. You know, in terms of what the impact on the project would be, there are some timelines within the purchase agreements and contracts that would need to be addressed, just for contingency dates and things like that. Anytime you start amending agreements and contracts like that, you start running the risk of having one party looking to, you know, play their hand a little better. And you can start opening a bit of a Pandora's box, but in terms of, you know, is there real harm in coming back in 2 weeks? I don't necessarily think there is. Could we answer those questions in 2 weeks? I think we certainly could. But I think I would want to make sure that we knew specifically, I guess, what those questions are in totality to make sure that we're addressing everything in that 2 week time frame.
Okay, that sounds good. Any more questions for Ed? Otherwise, I think we need to bring it back to the commission.
I have a couple.
You have one, for
Yep.
John?
Can we go back to the aerial, or the elevations, please? Okay, looking at this, looking at the south and the east elevations, do you see that outcropping where they used as a loading area on there? I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
so if
just
you-
saying, because to me, it looks like they're closing it off.
Yeah, it looks like it's in this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's,
so-
and that's exactly what I was thinking, because that's where it would be, is that little bit right there.
Yeah, it's right here. This is the piece that extends out of the building. You can see
And right
it
there.
ghosted. You can see it kind of ghosted right here on the south elevation. So this is one of the drawbacks of using the 2D elevations and the 3D renderings is that a lot of times, unless you have something real specific, it won't pick it up on the 3D rendering, and you look at the 3D rendering and say, oh, well, there's nothing there. But yeah, the 2D rendering shows that it does stay there. However, it does not show that the dock height doors are there. So
And that was my question
I'm
to
led
you.
to believe that
And that
because
was my
the-
question to you. If you're looking at, if we approve this elevation right here, the dock doors can't be there.
The dock doors can't be used. If that elevation is the elevation that gets approved, the dock doors can't be used.
The garden center goes away.
The garden center goes away. So any alterations that would be asked for when they applied for their building permit.
Anything
beyond
that varies
this-
from what we
Okay.
have here today, they have to come back for because of the PD on it.
Okay.
I
I think we've had a good discussion. I think we're ready to, we had a main motion, did we not? Mark, or, I'm sorry.
Did we have a
Our
I believe
secretary
we did have a motion
Mama
by
did that.
Mr.
Yeah, Mama did
Kulabali
it, right.
and seconded by.
Okay, then, is there any amendment to the motion? Somebody want to make a, we
am-
want to vote up or down on that, or
Am I
Justin?
able, is this appropriate to make an amendment
It
to
is.
table for two?
It
for-
is.
Okay.
Well, first we would have to take up the motion on the floor,
Can we amend it, that we want to
but
table
you
it?
could amend it, if, essentially you could ask them if they would like to amend their motion to table.
Yeah,
I'd like
let's
to
amend it.
ask you to amend your motion to table it till our next meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I think that's an excellent idea, to table it, and,
Before we
so let's,
vote,
before we vote, should we make comments about,
I would like to make sure I understand the topics, just so staff can follow
Right.
through on your,
Right.
So I have overhead doors. Do we have any? Do they exist? Are they planned? Garden area.
where are they? Where are the
Where are
overhead
they?
doors?
What's the plan? Are they not
Right.
planning on having any? So the issues related to the overhead doors. Garden area, ability to return it to green space.
yeah,
I'm
or
seeing
what
plotting.
happens to, I want to know what happens to it.
And
at the end.
ability to reduce parking.
Right, and parking
And
along that
increase
south
green
side
space.
might be a prime candidate, because over on the IHOP and Cadoba, those are questionable in terms of easements.
Am I adding anything you would like me to add to my list?
Is that first item, does that include, will there be a space available on the south elevation, south side
Yep.
to load and unload?
Yeah, I'll ask we'll try to get all the questions
Right.
related to drop off overhead doors, access.
Yeah,
And then we'll have
I
a
think we
chance.
want to see an exterior rendering that is the one they intend to use.
And there are
And
two
right now,
main-
we really don't see how they can use their storage site.
there are two main entrances in the front on the west elevation, so
Correct.
You know, people walk
are
in
they going to be using
walk in
both
with their
and
wagons.
why? And
Why do you need both? Yep.
Yeah.
You know, storing fancy cars, this is gonna be climate storage.
Be
Okay,
encouraged.
One's the front.
any other
It'll become
points
green
that,
space.
that we want
I
Mark
think that
to,
would be-
and,
That's what I'm under. That's
Ed
what
to
I'm
know
hearing
about.
here. Is that's your interest?
okay,
Sorry.
I guess not. Let's call the roll on the amendment to table.
Mr. Kiefer,
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell,
Aye.
Mr. Perry,
Aye.
Mr. Marshall,
Aye.
Mr. Kulabali,
Aye.
Ms. Davy,
Aye.
Councilmember Ford,
No.
Mr. Groth,
Aye.
Mr. Hens,
No.
Chairperson Prob.
Aye.
I think that is everything for the regular portion of the agenda tonight.
Okay, so that item has been tabled, and, so it's adjournment time before we go into workshops?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
We can call the roll. I mean, we don't have to call the roll. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now, we're going into workshop.